Shalom. Hi, I'm Mashiach Immanuel Mikhael, Eretzyisraeldovid, and I'd like to give you a rundown on what I've been doing since 1996. Since 1996, I've been writing a book called The Book of Life. I believe God asked me to write the book, and He sent an angel to tell me to write a book. At that time, I was pretty much illiterate. I couldn't spell. I could read, though, only by the actually full word, because I was also dyslexic. So my eyes naturally wanted to look from right to left. And so growing up in an English society in Australia, everything's written from left to right. So my eyes would keep on trying to go the other way. And so what I adapted was naturally was to familiarize myself with the complete whole word. And over time, I learned how to read by recognition of these words, not say syllables or the lettering of the word. No. So I never actually was able to be a good speller. And so when it came to writing, I couldn't write the word. If I saw it, I would recognize it. But if I was meant to write it, I didn't have a clue how to spell it. For example, let's say I used to write phonetically to the best of my ability. For example, the word who, W-H-O, which I know now, when I started writing my book of life, I write H-U-E, who. And there was other things. I would write letters backwards. When I've gone back through my primary school books, I used to write numbers backwards. So yeah, it was quite when I'm asked to write a book, so I'm like, what? I'm gonna write a book? How am I gonna write a book? Okay, I'm asked to write a book. And so I actually took it on and I started writing this book, and I got probably halfway through the first chapter, and then God laid on my heart, because God didn't talk to my mind. I didn't hear a voice, but God would speak to my heart, and that somehow communicated to my mind what to put down on paper or not. And He said to me to write the book, to call it The Book of Life. Okay, it's the Book of Life. I'm writing the Book of Life. Okay, so I've been writing that book ever since then, and I'd like to just give you a rundown what this Book of Life is. And I was thinking of doing, like, recently I did a Bible study, and I thought, this is a good thing, it's nice. And I'm just worried, I don't want to get too caught up in doing a Bible study or every now and then or regularly when I haven't finished my book of life, and that I think that the message should be in whole, because when I'm writing the Book of Life, God's telling me the full message that I have to get across to my audience, yet to be. And so if I give these Bible studies, it's like I'm giving bits of the Book of Life here and there, and it might distract me from writing the Book of Life also. The time that I'm putting in the Bible study, I could be writing the Book of Life, which what happened was I was writing the Book of Life, and I wrote some chapters here in Australia, At Uluru, I was at Uluru Mutijulu community with an elder looking after his son in a wheelchair. He was a very unwell boy. And so I was writing the book, and then I got an invitation from the Brothers of Charity in Africa to go to Africa, and I wrote a chapter called The Quest for Truth and the Poorest of the Poor, and so on. And basically, from Uluru, I ended up traveling the world and continued to write the book throughout the world, in Kashmir and all sorts of amazing, Jerusalem and all sorts of amazing places, and it's been a great experience. But it hasn't always been easy, but I think I'm not the most perfect person, that's for sure. But I think God chose me to write the book of life because he knew that I would continue to write it. I would fulfill it. So I was writing these chapters for some years, and then God said to me, now read the Quran from cover to cover and respond to it. And so I did that. Then he said, read the New Testament from cover to cover and respond to that. I did that. Then he said to read the Torah from cover to cover and respond to that. And just getting along in that. I've only just started getting along with that. And it's really quite amazing, you know, because God's conveying a message. As I'm reading the message, he's conveying a message, and to me, he's making the story that I'm reading from the Torah more clear. So hopefully the audience that read the Book of Life will find that the Book of Life will be an aid to the Torah, similar to the Mishnah Torah or the Talmud. Yeah, possibly than the Zohar, you know. It's quite, my book is quite mystic. If I can say it's my book, I say it's God's book. He's given it to me. And he said to me, give it to the world, give it to free. You can't profit from this book. Maybe find ways of getting income to get it out to the world for free, but by no means am I allowed to profit off it. It's to be given to the world for free. So there goes any sort of business plans with, you know, making some profit from the Book of Life. As a Jew, we like to do business, but this is one thing I'm not going to be able to do business with. I'm just going to have to cop it sweet and give it to the world free, you know. And I've always been a private person unto myself, and that's just it's been my nature. And I thought, well, if I'm writing this book, you know, I might get people that are, you know, start approaching me. You can get the strange odd person that's going to jump on a plane, want to try and meet me, and all sorts of people, maybe because of social media, they're going to approach and whatnot, and people would start wanting to, or they, you know, they could get I could get some sort of cult following that, you know, that I'm not really wanting. I don't want to entreat. So the elder, he has some land in Uluru, out near there, I won't say whereabouts, but he said that I could make myself home there, and that place, like, outsiders would need a permit to come to visit. It'd have to be through the land council, and they'd have to apply for a permission from me, and so I could have my privacy. And I thought, wow, well then I can get this Book of Life across, and I can have my privacy, you know, be a bit of a hermit with my wife and children though. You know, by all means I want to marry and have children, but that I could still have a private life. And when I was young, actually, I studied acting, and I gave it up because I just wanted to live a private life, and I didn't want to have the attention that an actor has. So it's almost like they give their life away to act, you know. their life is given over to the paparazzi and everyone else. So I want to give you a rundown about the Book of Life, and so that I can make people in the world aware of the Book of Life, because I feel as if it's important. And I'm writing this book, you know, and I'm thinking eventually one day it's gonna come to sort of like a point where I've completed it. But then I go to the rabbis in New York at 770 Chabad, Brooklyn, New York, and the rabbis tell me I have to write this Book of Life for the rest of my life. And I want to respect, not just that these people are rabbis and that I should respect them as rabbis, but they're elders to me. And being someone that's grown up amongst Aboriginals and Aboriginal elders, I learned going through the culture to have complete respect for your elders, so that if the elder says, you're going to write that Book of Life for the rest of your life, I'm to say, alright. You know, like straight, just no hesitation. Alright, okay, that's it. I'll do it. Because that's what my elders asked, and I don't question it. Which, you know, Western culture and that, they question their elders, you know. It's not to say that, you know, we don't question things in life or whatnot, but it's just when it comes to what our elders teach us, or teaching us, we learn to always straight away obey them. So the Book of Life basically is about a journey. It's my journey. It's a quest for truth. In fact, the first chapter is the quest for truth. Start something like this. I'm told to write a book, to think about the most important idea to write. Truth is my quest, my whole purpose entwined in truth like the spiral of fertility. And it goes on. Now, then there's a chapter about nature, you know, and how we are to be a part of nature. Chapter about man, and you know, and there's so many. The book is like this big. Like, one guy made an interesting point. He said, "I wonder how much the ink weighs, because I've used so many pens writing this book. It must be, the ink must weigh quite a bit." But it's definitely a lot of A4 book pages, just endless, written on all sides. And I asked God, what is this book? And he said to me, this book is the sealed book of Daniel. Now, I don't know if anyone is familiar with the sealed book of Daniel, because I can say I'm not, only that I'm aware that Daniel was shown a sealed book, but it was closed until the times of the end. And God is saying to me that this is that sealed book. And the Book of Life seems to be bridging Judaism, Christianity, and Islam into its original monophysaic ideology, doing away with what idol religions have added over history. And also it is it's explaining things that, okay, so it's explaining things that the Torah has not made so clear, or is explaining things that the New Testament is not so clear. or was written for a generation that couldn't write so clear, maybe similar to something like Michael Nostradamus, who had to write somehow in code. And so that brought along a big challenge too, because that came straight to me, you know, as I was doing that too. And also the Quran, explaining passages of the Quran also that, for example, the Quran says you should keep the Torah, the Injil, and the Quran. So to keep the Torah, I asked some Muslims in Kashmir, this passage, you're supposed to keep the Torah, the Injil, the Gospels, New Testament, and the Quran. Do you keep the Sabbath? No, they said. I said, but that's in the Torah, that you must keep the Sabbath. Why? They had no answer. So, this is where the Book of Life makes clear to even Muslims that say that their Quran is so perfect, it still goes without full explanation of what is in and within its chapters. That if all these people, like if the Christians can give up their polytheism, and if Jews can give up we argue and we question everything, and we can be very judgmental, and it's almost been because Christians have made such an effort to convert Jews to Christianity that we've almost put a shield between us and the doctrines in the New Testament, which could be very helpful, and I do believe there are, including with the aid of the Book of Life I'm writing, useful in just as much as all the Torah or the Quran. They all have a purpose in this life, to bring about an era where we have peace. And in fact, in 1996, when I started the Book of Life, God said to me, take a spear from your elders in Uluru and have that spear break as if in breaking war. So it actually took me 7 years. It took me till 2003 to actually get to Israel. And I took the spear around to a rabbi, Catholic priest, Russian Orthodox priest, Ethiopian Orthodox priest, imam, a Rastafarian even. All people that do believe in the one true God, but have different belief systems. And then I broke the spear as in breaking war. I burnt the spear so that the prayers of all these people could go up into the nostrils of God, and I fulfilled that mission. And that was to remind the people, because I can't go to the world and say make peace and there's going to be peace. But what I've done is, by documented in the Book of Life, I'm reminding the people of the prophecy of Isaiah, where it says, we shall turn the swords into plowshares and the spears into pruning knives. And remind the people, God's not going to wave a magical wand and make peace. We have a duty to comprehend the prophecy, to take it on board, and to bring about peace by action, by actions of peacemaking. So that was one of the really big things that was in the Book of Life. And Ariel Sharon, God bless his soul, he made it possible. He actually closed down the Mount of Olives for us that day, for security reasons, obviously, and for me and my Jewish companions, our Israeli companions, to be able to do the ceremony. And we did it at Dominus Flivit, where it's traditionally the place where the red heifer, the red cow, would be burnt, and that the ashes would be used for the purification of the people then to the temple. Along my journey, I came and met some very lovely people and very lovely rabbis, and they encouraged me and guided me to be able to do the ingathering, and was actually sponsoring me to go around the world. And still today, we go halves each. My rabbi will pay half, I'll pay half, and I'll go to a country, and I'll go to the synagogues, and I'll call the people back home to Eretzyisrael, and then I come back to Australia, recuperate, and every year or so, when, depending on finances, because the financial crisis has been very difficult times, but we've been, for instance, we went to Ethiopia. I went to Ethiopia thanks to my support of my rabbis. I went to the Israeli embassy and I said we want to get, I told them what we're doing, and we wanted to bring the last of the Ethiopian Jews back to Israel. Following that, there was Operation Dove, where the Israeli government brought back the last of the, I can't say last, I'm sure there's people that didn't make it, but the majority of those that were left behind that now are in Israel and made Aliyah. When we went to France, being that my rabbi sponsored me to go to France, and I went there, since we went there, we got the greatest Aliyah from any country, from France, from any country in the world. So it may seem pretty strange, this guy coming around the world and he says, come to Israel, and everyone goes, okay, we're going to jump on a plane and go to Israel. And people are going to, like, they got their lives and they have to put it, you know, it's not always going to be perfect, and it's not always going to go as planned, but it means a lot to a lot of people to have someone that is going and doing that, as myself, that is free to do it, you know? And the fact that I'm writing the Book of Life, I can document this whole process as I go, which I like to look at the Book of Life like a history book. It's a history of these times. So in 1,000 years' time, people will be able to look back and they'll see what was going on from the 20th century into the 21st century. You know? So, anyway, the Book of Life, it will eventually explain from creation, the beginning of creation, to now, and possibly have even things in the future that were previously prophesied about, that I'm not going to toot my own horn and say that I'm going to write prophecies or whatnot. If that happens, that's just by a miracle of God. But what I would like to think, that I would remind people of earlier prophecies and help to bring those prophecies about. Now, I have a lot of people, they call me Mashiach. My name is Mashiach Immanuel, and they call me Mashiach, and they say about Mashiach, the Mashiach can sense has a great sense of smell, and he can smell truth, or he can smell lies and deception. And funny enough, I have always had a great sense of smell. Now, I thought it was because that I had an infection in my ear, and I got a hit in someone. I had an argument with my sister, and she slapped me in the ear. You know, I forgive her, and you know, it was probably all my fault. I shouldn't have said what I said, but yeah, you know, one of my senses gets knocked out, another one sort of increases. You know, you hear people that go blind, their hearing gets better. People that hearing go, their eyesight's supposed to get better. Well, I have very good eyesight, but my sense of smell is like unbelievable. In fact, it's embarrassing. You know, when, like, for example, like, please don't take me in the wrong way, but like, my mother or something, you know, I'll smell and say, Mum, you gotta have a shower, you know. And everyone else, they wouldn't think she'd need to have a wash. She's fine. But because my great sense of smell, you know, I can sense that people need to be cleaner than what they are, more than other people. But what my sense of smell has, what I always thought it was that it was, I could smell danger. I never thought of myself as smelling for truth or lies or deception in any sense per se, but I always knew that I could sense somehow through my smell danger. And if people were planning to do something that was going to put me in danger, I was hightailed out of there before they even had a chance, because I sensed it's coming through my sense of smell. So now that I have to, people say that I smell truth or lies or deception, you know, I don't see myself as the judge of mankind. That's God's job. But I do appreciate that my sense of smell has saved my ass, saved my life quite a few times. And it started getting me wondering, okay, my rabbis were calling me Mashiach, but, you know, do I really want the responsibility that is asked of me as Mashiach? Is it maybe too great for me? Am I not good enough for it? Will I let my people down? And them sort of things, you know, deter me, but yet I keep on getting driven by my people excelling the Torah in their lives and saying Mashiach, Mashiach, Mashiach now, and they're saying it, and I feel as if I need to be able to do my part. So what I decided to say was, okay, you say I'm Mashiach, well, I'd like to say, and my rabbis would agree with me, that there is a spark of Mashiach in everyone. So if there's a spark of Mashiach in everyone, okay, then I will be that person, the Mashiach, that will help light the spark of Mashiach in everyone. And when the spark of Mashiach is lit like the Shabbat candle from every person in this world, every Jew, every person, God willing, that come to our faith, that the spark of Mashiach will be realized, and we can say it's the redemption. Not that on my own that somehow I fulfill the redemption. I think that's too much to ask from me. And people will wonder why I tarry in this cause of the Mashiach. The reason why I tarry is because I have an elderly mother and father who I adore, and I'm not ready to, because they had me an older age, I feel as if my elder brothers and sisters, they had my parents much longer in their lives, whether they chose to be around them or not, and I haven't, and I want them in my life as much as possible, and so I'm not really ready yet. Just pack up and leave my parents, who I want to, like every kid, make proud and be there for them, honor, look after them, care for them in their old age. And that's another thing I've learned from Aboriginal culture, is that you look after your elderly. So if I'm tarrying from doing the work of Mashiach, or being there with the children of Israel as Mashiach, is because I am preoccupied with my parents, and that I'm just not ready. And I please ask of you, all the Jewish community, all world Jewry, all the lost tribes of Israel, which I went to Kashmir and started the ingathering of the lost tribes, saying we want them back to Israel, to give me some time. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only person that asked for time in doing something in their life, but I need time. You know, at the moment, if my mum or my dad were to die today, we don't have the money to bury them. Okay, sure, I'm sure God would provide something away, but I want to give them a special burial, and I have some, in my mind, I have some plans where I can give them a real special burial. And to do that, I need to be able to find a means of doing it. And so I'm with my parents and I'm on that path. I've got a health drink that I started the patent. I put in the patent. I've got to finalize a bit of paperwork with it, but it's a patent, and you know, I could get an income out of it, hopefully in the future, and in that way I could be able to bury my parents and whatnot. And I'm only 40 years old, and I've really looked forward to turning 40, because I've been looking forward to reading the Zohar, which I'm going to buy the collection. They've been translated into English, and I'm going to buy the Zohar collection, the whole collection of, I think it's 12 books now they've got, which makes up the whole Zohar. And I've been looking forward to that. And basically I want time, like, for example, Moses, he didn't start his mission till he was 80. I'm only 40. In my mind, I think I've got another 40 years to be prepared to do the work that is calling me as Mashiach Immanuel Mikhael Eretzyisraeldovid. So, yeah, sure, I will continue with the ingathering, but I will come back to my parents and look after them. I've got another project that I won't go into, but it's for the security and defense of the children of Israel in any time of need that may arise, that is not expected but is needed. And that's all I need to go on about that. But yeah, another 40 years, 80, when I turn 80 years old, you know. And then there's issues where the children of Israel, and I can understand why, really want to build the Holy Temple, and they want me to build the Holy Temple. But if the Dome of the Rock wasn't there today and they could build the temple, I'm sure they would just build it where it is and as is. And you know what? If you build it where in its place on the Mount Menorah, on the Temple Mount today, still the Mount of Olives would be towering over the temple. Whereas in the prophets said that the temple would be raised higher than the mountains of Israel. That means that the Temple Mount would actually have to be man-made, built up so high before the temple could actually be built so that it'd be above the mountains. So the children of Israel also need time to build and to think and really be careful about building the temple according to the prophets, that it be the temple that is everlasting and not another temple that gets destroyed because we didn't build it according to the prophets. So the Book of Life has me on this quest to build the temple, but to build it higher than the mountains in Israel. And also, the ingathering we've got going on, I have to bring the children of Israel to have the Torah as the constitution of Israel. And I once thought that the Book of Life would be added to the Torah, the Tanakh, added to the Tanakh, not the Torah, but the Tanakh, the Torah, the holy writings, the Psalms, the prophets, the Book of Life, like that. But the Book of Life is going to be so big, you know, you're going to have this book almost to the roof. You'll need a stepladder to get up to read it, you know. So, all in God's hands. But what I would like to do is have all mankind know that the Book of Life is being written, that it is a book of peace, it's a book of unity, it's a book of goodness, of goodwill, of kindness, unity, and very much good things. And it also is a book about us making an active approach to fulfilling the prophets, the Torah. And also, I'd like to say that I went to Kashmir. My father played a documentary about Yeshua's being buried, that's Jesus, being buried in Kashmir, that he survived the crucifixion and that he was buried in Kashmir at an old age, in his 80s or so. And it was very unusual for my father. He didn't just play this documentary once, he came on and then he watched it again. And my dad's not the sort of man to watch a show twice. He watches that's it, that's over with. And I thought, you trying to send me a message to go there, Dad? He goes, yeah, sure. Of course, go. Next thing, my rabbi's buying me a ticket. I'm going to Kashmir. You know, went through so much struggle to get to Srinagar, to the Rosenbell Shrine where Yeshua was to be crucified, buried, and there was a foot there with a hole in it showing where he was crucified. That's what I was getting at. And a hole in the foot showing that he had a nail in his foot. And before I'd gone to the Rosenbell Shrine, I met a Christian. He had this cross like as big as his torso hanging around his neck. And I just arrived in Kashmir, in Srinagar, and he said, "You've come to see Jesus' tomb." I said, "Well, yes, actually I have." Then a little three-wheeler motorcycle pulls over, a Muslim pulls over. He goes, "Do you want me to take you to Jesus' tomb?" I said, "Well, yeah. But first come to my hotel, give your ID, and whatnot." I said, "If you look after me, because it's very dangerous there, you know." I said, "You know, if you make sure I get there and back to my hotel safe, I'll give you a letter inviting you to Australia." And I did that, but yeah, I don't understand why Jews haven't been told, or the world hasn't been told, what Christians and Muslims know in Kashmir, that Jesus survived the crucifixion and was buried in Kashmir. Why do Christians and Muslims in Kashmir say Jesus buried there, but you know the Vatican or the Kaaba and Saudi Arabia, why don't they say what about Jesus? What, you know, is it, do they feel as if that their religion is going to be considered as falsified if the truth of what happened to Jesus is revealed? And I don't think so. I think that it only adds to the mystery and the glory and the greatness of God, and adds to the goodness and kindness and the love of the Jewish people towards their fellow man, to have made it possible that Yeshua Jesus made it from Israel to Kashmir, where also is where Afghanistan, Pakistan, northern India, Kashmir is where the lost tribes of Israel are, which wasn't under the Roman Empire. So Jesus, Yeshua, being there was safe. And this was a guy, remember, that was got tried for treason, was supposed to be killed for treason, you know, and everyone wonders why the Jews didn't agree with freeing him. Yeah, sure, as if we're going to say, yeah, we're with the guy that committed treason, sure, we're with him, free him. Oh, grab you, come on, let's come with me, we'll crucify you all. Hey, I don't think so. Yeah, no, behind the scenes, we did what was possible, I'm sure, because he made it there and he was buried amongst his people. And if he's the Mashiach ben Yosef, then that's one more thing that I need to do, is to rise him from the dead. Now, I've heard there's a rabbi that has discovered, a scientific rabbi, he very clever man, discovered that there's a bone in the spine that the DNA lasts forever, just about. And you can take that DNA, reborn Jesus or anyone, and the rising of the dead is fulfilled. And or the rising of Jesus or the rising of the dead, if you do any person. And so this goes back to show that during the earlier times there was two groups of Jews. A group that said that the rising of the dead was a physical thing, and the others that said that it was a spiritual thing. Now we know that the prophets had seen this rising of the dead, seen this going on in the future, couldn't explain it, but it was a physical thing, and it must be something that's coming up in the future. And I've also heard that men, their sperm count throughout all men across the globe is dying and getting lower and lower and lower, and eventually men will not be able to procreate. This is what I've heard. I heard over the radio. And that it might be necessary in them times to populate the world with rising of the dead by taking DNA and genetically bringing people back, and so interesting times ahead. And also the temple coming from heaven. Well, if the Temple Mount was built up so high above the mountains, which would have to be very high, we may need heavy duty helicopters to lift the big heavy stones up and onto this new Temple Mount, or not new but extended Temple Mount, to build the temple. And this is what the prophets seen. They couldn't explain it. They said it came from heaven. Just like Israel is the lowest point of earth, and the Himalayas, Kashmir and all that are in the highest point of earth, near Mount Everest. And Yeshua, yeah, he went to heaven. He went, when I was going through Kashmir, we were driving through clouds. I was in heaven. But they weren't. Maybe they had to write a bit of code, like how Michael Nostradamus had to write code. You know? Not just to say that this guy had gone there and made it or whatnot, but to vindicate ourselves that it was written also to vindicate us, Jews, that we didn't just turn aside and leave our fellow man that was innocent to be crucified, that was fighting for our freedom against a vicious Roman Empire with its idol gods coming and standing from the Egyptian god Ra. No. We are really good, decent people. You know? Okay. So, the Book of Life covers all these topics and more. And as I go, God just lays one thing upon another upon my heart, and I try and write it down as quick as I can so I don't miss the message. And you're going to find that when it is available to the public to read, that it will be an interesting read, and I will do my best to have it written, because I'm not going to look for people to edit it, because I don't want them to somehow take away from it the message, you know, just because they say, oh, I've repeated itself. If it's repeating itself, it's for a reason. It has to be repeated. So, you know, you'll get what you get, and I hope you like it, and I hope that those that like the Book of Life don't jump out and try and want to meet me and ask me questions. You know, you can turn to a rabbi and ask a rabbi, you know, what do you think? And, you know, and respect my privacy and peace. And sure, maybe if it's like that with social media, I can answer people's questions, you know, for the internet. You know, the whole idea of being king of Israel, Mashiach being king of Israel, you know, seems a bit too much for me. If it's what my people want, sure, but surely everyone's going to have to respect my privacy, just like they want their privacy respected. And, you know, I don't have a degree in political science. It's not like I will be someone that's going to be able to run the country. There's people that do that, but hopefully as King Mashiach, I can be a spiritual guide to the best of my ability, and do my best as a human being. If there's any miracles performed, it's not me, it's God himself that has performed them, and I will be in awe of any miracle that happens over my path and journey than anyone else. and I'd like to be treated as a normal human being. I am not no God. I am not the return of Jesus Christ. But all I am is a man that has a journey, that is on a mission to save the world in my way. And we all want to save the world in our own way. And that might mean I only have to save one life. Isn't it written that to save the life of one person is like to saving the life of all mankind? So how about we agree that we all try our uttermost to save a life of one person, and all together we can save all mankind through goodness, kindness, goodwill, unity, peace on earth, as it should be, as it was in the beginning when God created everything. And you're going to be, when you read in the book of life, you're going to be set back on how low and how evil and how disgraceful humanity can scoop. But also remember Abraham, he fell 7 times. But what made it so special about him, he rose up each time 7 times. So he fell and he got back up. And he kept on fighting the good fight. And that's what we should all be doing. And I hope one day that you all read the book of life and that it be free unto you all. And as the rabbi said, they want me to write it for the rest of my life, I will. But I need more guidance in how I'm going to bring the book of life out. Maybe there will be an initial book that I'll bring out. The book of life part 1, where I come to some conclusion after I've finished responding to the Tanakh. And then a response to the how people respond to it and how mankind move and change. And how the redemption is. You know, the book of life about the redemption and how it's all unfolding after the book of life is given to mankind. So this is bye from me now. Mashiach Immanuel Mikhael, Eretzyisraeldovid. Muslims say that the Mashiach, I am the Mahdi. And Christians are waiting for Jesus' return. If I am able to bring him back to life and raise him from a child and that make him into a great rabbi, I will teach him the book of life, and may he be great than me. And I'm sure he will be, because the rabbis say if it is he, it's Mashiach ben Yosef that is much greater than I, Mashiach ben Dovid. That is what I believe. And what us rabbis believe. I am just a very simple person. Mashiach ben Yosef was right out there, really. He was a rabbi. I'm yet to be a rabbi. I've been called a tzaddik, you know, and I think that's a really big word to use for me. You know, maybe one day when I'm drinking milk and honey and I've got my life together, how it should be, and it might take until I'm 80, but one day I'll get there, and one day we'll all get there together. So that is bye for me now. I hope you come to read the book of life soon. In the name of God, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, God is one. Welcome all Jews, all Christians and all Muslims, all Rastafarians, all the believers in the one true God, to a dialogue that brings about peace and gets rid of the chaff that should be blown by the wind and burnt by embers, so that there is no more crap amongst the goodness and the greatness of all the scholars that have come before us, so that we shall have our names written on a great big scroll and put our names to the stars as saints, which I believe will come one day soon, if we all do our bit. As Mashiach, with this very speech, I hope to light the spark in all of you. Mashiach, 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 light the spark within your souls. Go out with the spirit of Mashiach in you all, and let's make the redemption a reality. Amen. Thank you very much.